Greetings in the name of the beam of the Most High. Well, we prayed yesterday pretty hard. There were three of us trying to, because apparently I'm not the only one that felt the oppression beam. And then today, and this is what you pay me for. I mean, this is where I can deliver interesting audio, because today I had one Beatles song in my head, and it was from the classic Beatles, and it was a song that I felt was one of the best pre-psychedelic Beatles songs. Let me qualify that by saying one of the best songs ever done. And the reason I say that is the complexity of and the working of the melody. Very simple lyric, just a verse chorus. The Beatles don't really have a lot of complexity in their music, but it's the layers and the tone and the vibe that was created. And again, this is about 1965, but anyway, we're talking about being beamed. It isn't because I like the song, it's because it's inadvertently in my head when it shouldn't be. So here, let me read to you the lyrics. Two of them. No, we'll start with She Said. She Said. There is a song called She Said that's just terrible. She Said, She Said. Was on the Revolver album. There was that very beginning. Did I say 1966, folks? Is that what I just said? Anyone? Like I'm talking to you. It says 1966 here, Revolver. Now, I remember this album. Some of the songs that you may remember were like, okay, give me the lyrics. Lyrics, please. God, what? Okay. Now, listen to the first line, okay? She said, I know what it's like to be dead. I know what it is to be sad, and she's making me feel like I've never been born. It was heavy, right? It was the beginning of that era, 1966, where Bob Dylan and, you had the early workings of Jimi Hendrix and Buffalo Springfield and all these iconic bands, The Who, that were starting to get into heavier lyrics. And of course, Revolver led the way to eventually Sgt. Pepper, and then on to other stuff. They didn't do that many songs. They didn't do that many albums. But here's the thing about this song. And, regardless of the merits of the song, that's a side issue. The point is, it's being beamed at me in some way, because it was right there, like you could hear it in your ear, like the Navy fight song a few years ago that Dr. John Hall said he knew a lot of people that were having that same Navy fight song in there at the same time, and that kind of freaked me out. When I was getting it, they were getting hit too. So it's obviously used in an experiment? I don't know. But I was not alone in that, and I could hear it. Now, this was not quite audible in the same way. It was more like a subtle thing from the spirit. It may have been just demonic. But the other one, so, you get the lyrics. It's like, she said, I don't understand what I said. I said, no, you're wrong. When I was a boy, everything was right. Everything was right. I said, even though you know what you know, I know I'm ready to leave because you're making me feel like I've never been born. So it's a very, very kind of a heavy song for 1966. And, for any time. She said, I know what it's like to be dead. I know what it is to be sad. Well, but you're making me feel like I've never been born. Obviously, there's a problem. The other one that came a little bit later, like a 1-2 punch. And again, I'm not looking for anything. I'm just looking for sleep. You know. Now the other one, let me see if I can. How do I get out of that? Okay. So it's called "It's Only Love," and I believe it was from about the same era. No, I don't want the Bryan Adams version. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to bring you. Let me see if I can give you the exact date. Okay, so this one comes from the Beatle album Help from 1965. So it's 1965, 1966, when I was a boy. Now, how old am I? Zeph. At that time, I was born in 1954. So I'm 11 in 1965, and I'm 12 in 1966. Okay? All right? Okay, now let's go ahead and go through some of these lyrics. I get high when I see you go by, oh my. When you sigh, my inside just flies, butterflies. Why am I so shy when I'm beside you? And then the chorus. It's only 2 verses and 2 choruses. and multi-platinum, platinum. I think people complicate songwriting too much. It's only love and that is all. Why should I feel the way I do? It's only love and that is all. But it's so hard loving you. So you're making me feel like I've never been born, and it's so hard loving you are the quintessential messages being told to me. I guess I'm playing the part of the girl here, right? So I'm being beamed the message that I'm making someone feel like they've never been born because I know something. And 2, right, because of the podcast. And 2, because of the Bible, because of the knowledge of whatever, I don't know. And 2, it's so hard but it's so hard loving you. Which is what you hear from Satanists. In other words, we'd love to love you, but we need something from you first in order to love you. And it's like, but I need my soul intact. Well, see, that's the problem. You need to come on in, the water's fine, and join the collective. Join the hive, and you'll be loved, and you'll be happy. And you won't be, attacked anymore. And, blah, 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 blah. And you can go attack people and won't get in trouble for it. So there's that, right? There's that dichotomy. Do you see how bizarre it is to go back to 1964, or 5 rather, and 1966? These 2 songs consecutively, because Help came out, remember Help? And then the next album to come out was Revolver. That Revolver, they're just starting to get into the psychedelic stuff. They're just starting to get into LSD, and LSD culture is affecting the music, right? And things are just beginning. That's just the beginning of it all, right? Of the God is Dead movement, which is what it's all about, right? Rejection of God. So that's coming out of the thick of it. And there were songs, I think, on Revolver that were more kind of innocent, like Paperback Writer, and but they really had developed a sound by then that was leading the way into the psychedelic thing of 1967, 68, which is where you got Sgt. Pepper. No, you actually had another one. You had Strawberry Fields. I actually don't remember, but I was a big fan until the White Album. I think and of course the Abbey Road album, which basically was just, I was more of a fan of John Lennon, I'd say, than Paul McCartney. So I tended to kind of follow Lennon around. I guess a little bit. But then I was such a fan of Jimi Hendrix and the three-piece thing and Cream and all that. Because I was a drummer, and so I really, that was more. The Beatles never really impressed me that much with drums. And then I became a fan of fusion, right? I became a fan of John McLaughlin and people like that, and because they had the best drummers, so I was always attracted to that, to the best drummer. But anyway, these songs are quite powerful. This one, You're Making Me Feel Like I've Never Been Born, is a very, very advanced song for its time, and very, very powerful and very dark. I know what it's like to be dead. I know what it is to be sad, and you're making me feel like I've never been born. I get high when I'm around you, but it's so hard loving you. Why do we fight every night? The lyric goes, I'm tired of fighting all the time, but it's so hard loving you. It's kind of a little bit jumbled there, because it seems like they're fighting every night, but at the same time, it's like he's got a schoolboy crush on her. He doesn't even know her. But the message was very clear. You're making me feel like I've never been born, and it's so hard loving you, being beaten. Now, it could be witchcraft, could be anything, but I recognize the beaming. So I'm putting it out there to see if anyone else heard the same thing, for one thing. And if you did, you're probably freaked out right now hearing this podcast. And, I just, to me, it didn't seem like the Navy fight song. That was like, you could hear it. I mean, it was audible in your ear, and it was unmistakable. And it was, wow, it was some kind of technology that I have no idea of. Someone could say it's, it's a microwave. I'm not sure this was beamed in through something. It's more subtle than that. But it's like it was in my head and I couldn't get it out. I woke up with, hearing the songs playing in my head. And I'm not, that's very unusual for me to hear a song. Because a lot of times if I've heard a song, like if I'm working on one, or I'm working on one of Kelly's songs, or one of Rich's songs, or one of mine, I hear, I sometimes when it's good work going on, I can hear it in my head, and it starts sort of resonating that way. And then if I've heard something on the radio or whatever, then I could hear that. I haven't heard these songs. This is out of the blue. I'd already been awake for a while when it started getting beamed in. It was just bizarre how it just was there. And, 3 a.m., which is perfect. So I'm just wondering, if you've had that. To me, there was a message in it. Basically, I think there's a complaint about what we, how far we go here. I'm not talking about, spilling the beans of the stupid, precious Satanism and all their little secrets and clubs and signs and things they do to be in the club. I'm not even, that's, of course, that's nothing. I don't know anything. I just know the rudimentary basics of things like that. I think it's talking about things beyond this realm that is the egregious, the sin here. I think it's proving implacably and irrevocably and undeniably that the way it works here, what is the purpose of the life on the earth, and what happens after you die, and what is this time-space thing compared to, and what is this about how it's my experience and you're all sock puppets, you're all projections of my own consciousness, and the same is true for all people if there are such things. And then when we go beyond that, we get further into understanding what this all is, what people have said the Matrix, but that doesn't really explain it. They stupidly think, they ignorantly think there's an architect somewhere that's running it, a Wizard of Oz character. And of course there isn't. And then there's the whole mystery of Saturn and the black cube. And, dark matter in the black cube, and the whole thing about, well, what does it mean to open up the pit, and so Apollyon comes out, and what is Apollyon? And what is, so you know what I mean? There's all these mysteries connected to people looking to the occult to try to solve them, because they're not going to get an answer from the Bible. You're going to get some answers if you go back and very meticulously look at the structure that, the Bible names the serpent. Okay, so that would be the being in the garden. as Satan and the devil, that old serpent, Satan and the devil, okay, from Revelation. So it points out that the serpent is Satan that tempts Eve and and causes them to fall, which I've always called the Luciferian cosmogony, which means the creation of the world by Lucifer, by absconding with what God had made and twisting it into his own creation. There seems to be that kind of imitative thing going on, and that was, of course, the beginning of the eyes being opened, but then being tethered. That there was the blocking of the tree of life, but there was the opening to the occult right there, to the knowledge of good and evil, which is basically the knowledge of magic, witchcraft, and the fall of man, and wars and murders, and all this lovely things that you associate with having been born on this lovely place, this lovely planet with all these lovely people, which I know you cherish and adore on a daily basis. So there's other lyrics there too, and I thought I would figure it out with you today, because I know you're hurting. I feel that, and so I'm here, showing up here, not just because of you, but I feel like we're hurting. We're being beamed. I told you this yesterday, and it's just this awful, like, oppression beam. And I've just gotten confirmation. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'll get it. I'm sure I'm right, and I'm sure that everyone. And when I say it ends, it ends. I will call it. But right now, it's sort of there. It's still sort of there, and. So It's Only Love goes, it's only love that was so hard loving you. Is it right that you and I should fight every night? Just the sight of you makes nighttime bright, very bright. Haven't I the right to make it up, girl? It's only love and that is all. Why should I feel the way I do? It's only love and that is all, but it's so hard loving you. Yes, it's so hard loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you. And 1965 Help record, which sold wildly. And I remember, and then before that was A Hard Day's Night. I guess that would be 1964. So they were very prolific. Like every year there would be an album. And I remember that I won a contest. I got to go to the premiere of A Hard Day's Night. And then Help was a movie as well. And so there were movies and albums together, and that time people were screaming and yelling for the Beatles. And I got down to the theater; it was just packed. It was in Hollywood, I remember, and I was, I would have been what? Let's see, I would have been 10 years old, and I remember going to it. I heard my name on the radio. It was like KFWB. And you send in a card, and if they call your name, you get 2 tickets to A Hard Day's Night. And I won those 2 tickets to A Hard Day's Night, and there was a matinee. And I went to the matinee. It was no big deal. The Beatles weren't there. I mean, it was just basically before the world got to see it, right? And so it was a special thing, and I was, and I think at that time there were record stores where you could get, I remember I bought of the Beatles, there was such a craze. I bought a European copy of something, a bootleg copy, not a bootleg, but a European pressing, and I thought that was really special. And I was also in bands then on 10 and 11. I was, then I was struggling around with guitar. I could play the Day Tripper, licks, and I could do, some of that, and play some of the chords, and but then I ultimately drifted over to drums by about 11 or 12. And I had been in piano, but piano was out of tune, never got tuned, so I just they wouldn't tune it. But anyway, so funny that takes me back, and I remember Revolver, that I was in Malibu. I remember being in Malibu, and I remember I had the drums, and I had a Ludwig white pearl drum kit with Zildjian cymbals. I mean, it was really nice. Got it at Drum City down in Hollywood, I remember. And it was, they let it go for nothing. It was like they had been sitting there a long time, I guess, and they, made a deal. But anyway, it was too loud for that space. And, but, just interesting looking back at those memories, and all that. And everybody played guitar then. The Beatles inspired a lot of people to get a guitar and an amplifier and learn those licks. And then we were all competing to see how loud the amplifier could be, who had the loudest amp, right? And then eventually you got into 1967. Then in high school, that's where we started getting rides down to the concerts, and you had a whole new flurry of bands coming in, and that's when Jimi Hendrix came in and Bob Dylan, Like a Rolling Stone. All this, well, that was 66, but all this stuff was happening right at those critical junctures. So all the older kids had cars. They were hippies. They were all into the hippie thing and dropping acid, and, so we'd all tag along with them to all the concerts and the whole lifestyle that was going on. It was really kind of almost like a cultural revolution. And then you find out later it was completely socially engineered by the CIA and by, the Rand Corporation and by the military-industrial complex. And the whole thing was to turn against God, okay? The whole thing, when the Time magazine, New York Times, everyone had these headlines of God is dead, and it was it was like seeing Kennedy get shot. Kennedy gets shot, God is dead. Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy follow. Then this whole music movement's going on. And and when I look back on it all, Jolly West becomes the psychiatrist for Sirhan, and the hits just keep on coming. And, the Manson murders was going on then up on Benedict Canyon. Well, it's not Benedict, but it's up on Cielo Drive, which is actually off Coldwater Canyon. But I mean, there's all that going on, and I'm 12, 13, and in the midst of it all. And when you look back on all the deaths that happened back then, you wonder how anyone got through it. Most of the kids that I knew, that I grew up with at that time, they used all that decadence to get them into the satanic system. And when they got going with that, they all became bullies and cocky and arrogant. And not all of them, but many of those of my age group we were talking about this yesterday. They used to be, they would be so angry, like if you were happy or you were doing well, but just if you're happy, if someone like me is happy, they would get so just out of their minds trying to put you down and make you unhappy, and so they can laugh at you. And they all became bullies with Satan, and now they're all broke. And, it's just really sad to go back to that time. This is not what I was going to talk about, but I mean, it sparked the memory of those times. And so I think I can be helpful. I mean, just imagine being in that era of Timothy Leary and all that stuff, right? And Sunset Boulevard and, Pandora's Box and the Mothers of Invention and, Laurel Canyon and the parties in the Hollywood Hills and, Father Yode with the Source Restaurant on Sunset and all the stuff that Dave McGowan writes about. I was there. He's younger than me. He wasn't there. I was there. And, the whole thing of, unlimited drugs and all these people involved. And then, of course, earlier than that, you had, death of famous people and, doctors that, prescribed for them. And you just eventually, you start to, mental hospitals and, suicides and all this mayhem that was going on around Hollywood, just raging at that time. And then, of course, the advent of, I remember 1968 or 9 or somewhere around in there, I remember, the X-rated film showed Clockwork Orange. It was down in the Westwood Village, which was a big deal for movie premieres. And it was just Clockwork Orange. You couldn't get in unless you, were an adult. And then the riots down there at UCLA and, all this stuff. I just, looking back on it, I'm amazed we got through. I think that my age group, really let you guys down, because I know I'm speaking mainly to younger people. We really let you down, because my generation was completely selfish and narcissistic to the extent that it's almost not even almost on the level of Julius Caesar or something, But you can't blame them too much, because that was the culture. It was all basically me, mine material. There was no. The kids were dropping out right and left trying to find ashrams to go to so they could, and then the shyster gurus would, steal their whatever inheritance or trust fund they had. No, it's not that funny. I just looking back on it all, it's all coming flooding back, and these people, they had their privilege. I mean, they had their, Wilshire Ebell, cotillion. And then they had their high school graduation, and they were in the right fraternity and sorority, and they had their club memberships to the real fancy snobby clubs in Los Angeles, and now, oh my God. Well, what they need is the Zeph report. That's what they need. It's not all is lost. There's Jesus is there, the Lord is there. There's no need to, but see, I remember back when I was doing bad, and bad things would happen. These people would all line up to laugh at me, and laugh they did, and laugh and laugh and laugh, and it was a big joke. And you see, what ended up happening is that God is not mocked. What we reap is what we've sown. And so you see, when you mock people, and I don't mean defensively, mocking them because you're in a battle with them and it's part of a strategy. I mean, Elijah did that, right, with the prophets of Baal. I mean, when you mock them, when you're mocking someone's very soul, and then it scars you so that you really can't be with them because you've been hurt. And, it caused me to retreat into my childhood state, to regress. And I just was trying to get through life hoping they wouldn't keep hurting me. And that was what I remember of whatever peer group I had. And, the reason I think all this is coming up, because in the soup of all this stuff, where I'm being beamed these records, and being beamed the oppression beam from yesterday, which seemed to have lifted toward the afternoon yesterday, but I feel it's kind of back again. And, the Donald Trump thing seems to be part of all of this. And Donald Trump is literally, they're attempting to gang rape him from every news out. Now they're all insane with bloodlust to take Donald out. And I've never seen anything. What the Lord had Donald do is reveal the true spirit of all the people attacking him, what they're really made of, who they really are, and all the people, the common people, are lining up with them, showing me they've conformed to the world. The Donald Trump litmus test prove how conformed you are to the world system of Satan. What club are you a member of? Now, all the people in the rich club, they're all going to line up with HuffPo. HuffPo's jumped on now, along with Fox News, and then the rest of them, because at the Rupert Murdoch level and the Arianna Huffington, they're not liberals or Democrats. It's all about the money with these people. I mean, Ariana's gone, but I think she's gone. I actually don't pay attention to it, so I don't know. So it's an abstraction to me. But I just follow the threads and see what's happening, and they're all piling on. But in their articles, and there was one that I read by John Fund for the National Review, and the NRO, the National Review Online, and my God, I think this man has lost his mind. He's comparing Trump to a bullying teenager in high school, which is not it at all. He's just being himself. But John Fund is gone. I'm seeing what's happening here. My guy's like watching Saul in slow motion, right? Back in the Bible, Saul, when he was driven insane, and David would come play the harp to try to soothe him. Remember? Well, this is the same thing. They've done wrong, okay? In the gang rape attempt, and taking someone, conspiring to use the debate to take this guy out, to setting a trap, setting a snare for him. I don't care what you think of Trump. I mean, he's no angel. I mean, obviously, that's no one's saying that. But when you do that to another human being, you got to own up to that. And it's like God's paying the karma back right now. And Trump is being used to completely, well, like that was the thing with, the whole Carly Fiorina thing. Now Fox News is going to back Carly Fiorina to go up against Hillary. That'll be the thing they're going to promote. It's like promoting a good boxing match. So it's the whole thing's a joke. She sold out completely, jumped on with me, got involved in it because everyone's been given goodies that jumped on with Fox News. Her goodie is she's been on there every day since the debate, and they're promoting her as the number one thing, and they're trying to act like Donald Trump is nothing. And they're single-handedly, instead of knocking him down, the strategy is now becoming practical to lift her up. And hey, look, I backed her. Back when she was begging for money, she had not 2 cents to rub together, and they had some money, but I mean they were barely, hanging on. And now, of course, she could care less about me. But I felt that, if there was going to be a woman president, if that was it, I felt that she'd be good. I still feel she'd be a good alternative, although of course I don't like her now. I still feel that she would be better than Hillary Clinton. But it's kind of one of those things that I could say that on my way to Costa Rica or New Zealand or some other place, you know what I mean? It's at the same time I still want to leave. But I just, look, I can't get over it because, see, she ended up triggering all this stuff that I remember about gang stalking. Yes, Donald Trump, they're gang stalking him. Donald Trump is a TI. And it's terrible what's happening. And don't you see them, how they operate together? The hive mind, how it all syncs up. It's supernatural. Never thought we'd have Donald Trump on the side of God before. And then them on the side of the devil. But yeah, and then I saw Mike Huckabee jump in there with the devil. And start smooching the ass of Megyn Kelly, Please let me stay, I'll grovel all you want. I saw them all doing it. My God, what I've seen is just as much insane as when I read the book Young Goodman Brown, which, I mean, if you haven't read that, that should be required reading for you all, especially you lambs out there. The lambs, for those of you who don't understand what a lamb is, it's the same thing as the film Divergent, which mischaracterizes it, but that's what they're supposed to be saying. Through no fault of their own, they're just born the way they're born. They're divergent. That is correct. They're lambs through no fault of their own. It's not a choice. It's a birth. Okay? And there's nothing you can do, and then that's the only thing about the series Divergent that works for me, is the fact that these people are born that way, and they can't adapt to either, one of these, and they're scientifically able to measure it. That's correct. And when people, don't fit into one thing or another in our society, they get attacked horribly. And most of them today are not like the heroine of Divergent series, Triss, who's out there conquering the world and finally getting people on her side. They had one moment where she felt bad, that she felt she's ruined it for everybody and all the death, she caused it. Because they want you to think that you're causing all the death and destruction. She didn't cause any of it. Finally, that was acknowledged. And I wonder, that makes me think, why my old schoolmate who produced it, why is he dabbling in that story? And it must just be money. It couldn't be conscience, could it? That he was a persecutor of the lambs. that he probably drove my friend to death. It couldn't be that. No, 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 no. I must be mistaken there. No, no, I'm sure it's not that. It's not a pang of guilt driving him to do it. No, no, it couldn't be. I like to make the Zeph report as theatrical as possible. Thank you. I have the right to do so because my grand experience of life, I'm able to pull a lot of things together that you might not be able to get from people just dealing with conspiracy theory tinfoil 101. How's that Jade Helm treating you? When are we going to have the FEMA camps and everyone get locked up? Wah, wah, wah. Okay. So pulling all this together, it's only love and that is all, the Satanist says. Why do I feel the way I do? Okay, let me explain what that line means in the context. That line from the Beatles means that they have a problem with people just walking around out there being free. You see? And why should we argue every night? Well, that's out of context because he's acting like a schoolboy in the verse 1. So the idea we argue every night like what, an old bickering couple, that's kind of out of context. But that's okay. No one expects, they're not genius lyrics, not by a long shot. But why should we fight constantly is a better way of looking at it. And the reason is these two sides fight like oil and water. It's only love, and the other thing is, the people that are conformed in this thing, they are romanticize and fantasize about people that are walking around free, but they want to go out and get them and reel them in. And just like my friend, and I'm gonna really, I'm almost I'm in a free form state here, so. Like my friend who was walking around on the beach, the woman at the dinner table, she goes, "Your old friend, so-and-so, yeah, I know, yeah, Bill, he's still out there." Out there? Yeah. And then the Jezebel wife, who eventually they got divorced, but she says, "And we're going to get him." Then I go to Don Quixote. And they were going to get him too. They were going to reel him in. They have a real problem with anyone, and Donald Trump, they're going to get him too. But they're going to get you, even if you're just out having a good time, just being free, just riding your skateboard down the street. They're already got designs on you. They know you're out there riding your skateboard, and they're going to get you. I don't know why it's anyone's business. When I hear about my friend, being a poet and maybe a drifter or whatever on the coast of California, I can only wish him Godspeed. Isn't that what you would do? You wouldn't have an idea like, we're going to go get him. Well, he used to be in that society we were in. I guess get me too. I dropped out of it. I bounced off the mirror through no fault of my own, just birth. To my old high school friend, hey, just birth. That's right. You had it nailed in your movie. It's just birth. I didn't ask to be born this way. I was just born this way. There's nothing anyone can do about it. You don't just go out and you can kill me, I suppose, but you can't get me. And lambs are like that. My daughter is exactly like that too. She's 100% a lamb. She's a free spirit. After she got tired of walking, to all the way to Santiago. She'd already been walking a month, so she decided to peel off, and she went to Madrid for a few days. On her own, alone. And then she was going to book a flight from Madrid to Florence. And but anyway, she was in Madrid, just chilling out, just kind of there. And that's what I mean by, I mean, she could drift from one city to another in Europe, It's just, that's just the way she is. It's just, and then you can call her and you might hear from her a month later. You know what I mean? Kind of a chip off the old block. I don't mean to be that way. I don't do it on purpose. I keep trying to make a mental note to, be more conscientious about things like that. But that's the way she is too. And so I realize we're born now. It's just not, the system just doesn't have, we're just here. Now, how about people saying, yeah, Francesca's out there and she just went to Madrid. She went to Madrid. Yeah, she's staying in some little, little hostel or some little, some little hotel there in the middle of Barcelona or Madrid or whatever. She's in some little hotel there, and she's having a cappuccino and reading a book. She's reading a book and sipping cappuccino. The headline reads, to those in the hive mind. They did a commercial like that, mocking the lambs, where this kid was saying, he was going to go do this and he was going to go do that. He goes, and then I went over here. And then the announcer goes, he went, to the market or whatever. He tried this acne medicine. He tried the acne medicine, and it was like a mocking thing because he was, not of age yet. And I don't even know what I'm talking about here. I'm just, the only way I can explain it is, with my brother and me, and then this guy that was wandering around the beach with the poetry, and then my daughter, and then so many others. You know who you are out there. It's not your fault. I was trying to say this yesterday. It's not your fault. You didn't do anything. And then all the people that slipped through the cracks, and, I'm sorry. But it's not your fault. You can't change the way you are. Like with me, it just doesn't occur to me that the things that occur there's two different occurrences. What occurs to me in my consciousness is not what occurs to them in theirs. And the twain, and they just say, no, it's a matter of choice. I'm like, no, it's not a matter of choice. It's a matter of who you are. What your heart is, who you are, who you are as a human being. And, they say, well, life, things will be really hard for you. Well, we'll see about that. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to be a third-tier slave when I'm my father's son. Why would I do that? It's only love, and that is all. Yes. Well, it's more than that, genius. You don't tell me, okay? I tell you. You shut up and listen or not. But there is no two-way conversation here. You either listen up, or if it just doesn't fit, if you're just that different, then that's you, and then you go on your path. I go on my path, and never the twain shall meet. That's just the way it is. I would tell Michael Savage the same thing. He just was born that way. But, he thinks it's because of his political stance that he's not allowed in England or that he's banned from everything. No, man, he's a success commercially, but he's, he is what he is. That's what I love about him, by the way. But, I see who he is, but the world just sees him as being, he's different or he's too New York-y, Jewish-y or whatever, and so they don't like that act. No, it's none of those things. He is just made the way he's made, and he's done very well. He has advanced degrees. He's had several careers. He's had best-selling books. But don't expect Hollywood to be running to make a movie out of it, anytime soon. I can't, there's nothing I can say. There is no, he would not be able to join the club. He would bounce off the mirror. Sorry. And he would bounce off, even if he convinced himself through hypnosis to join something would happen that would screw it all up. And obviously this Donald Trump guy now is having the same, could it be at long last that this guy has been an outsider all along? Or is he an insider, as Rand Paul says, posing as an outsider? Well, we'll find out. I don't know what to think. I know he has sons and daughters, and daughter, I'm not sure how many daughters. He's got kids. They're good-looking kids, and he's at the time of life where, he's just himself, and himself, maybe he's always been a bull in a china shop, and they're trying to bring up today is dirt day for Donald. They're bringing it all up. And you've got everybody, left-wing media and right-wing, joining together, kumbaya, isn't that cute? All putting out the same stuff, and all seemingly insane. You read the article by Eric Erickson now, the Red State guy. He seems to have lost his mind. It's just like Saul. All these people are just like Saul. They try to gang rape Donald Trump, and they raped themselves, and they're screaming and yelling now. And it looks to me like the Donald has moved on. Well, they're putting all their chips on Carly Fiorina now. They're throwing all the men under the bus. Yeah, it's just entertainment now. Carly Fiorina is your basically actress du jour, and she's your entertainer for the evening. And she's okay for half an hour, but after you've seen that one half an hour, the rest of it's a broken record. No, I don't think she would be. I don't think she would beat Hillary, but I don't think she would be. Necessarily, exciting for the country, motivating, galvanizing. No, she would be a diligent. I don't think she has a big personality either, like people comparing her to Maggie Thatcher and the Iron Lady, and I don't see that at all. But I do detect now a lot of this is egomania. And it's not a need to serve the country. And then hey, I'm glad the Lord, opened He used Donald to bust it all open so we could all see. As far as how far Donald Trump will go, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it could be over this week. He could. I'm surprised it's gone this long, actually, at this point. When they move heaven and earth to get rid of somebody, they moved the entire society against him. No man is that strong, are they? Unless it's completely beyond supernatural. Only in the hands of God could he stand. That would be the only way he could stand. Having God's hand on him, or else he would just be eviscerated. These people are just ruthlessly cruel. And when I saw Carly being one of them, I felt a little disappointed because I knew that her day would come where she would rocket to the top, and I predicted it, and I had, I should be calling myself a winner because I had backed her campaign modestly, no big deal, but back when she really needed it, like I did with Scott Walker when he was up against the unions, and I was there. I seemed to be there with certain people at a critical time to help them out, at a critical time, and then I move on, right? And I had to move on because, she crossed a line when she said, I stand with Megyn Kelly. There's even if he said, she was on her period, she was on the rag. So what? The fact that they're doing this whole, what do you call it, Trish, a vagina thing? Yeah. The vagina flotilla? They're all jumping on the vagina flotilla, shame with the war on women. When I saw her do that, and how could we do that, all these people, I realized they are not brethren with me. She said she's a Christian. Well, you can call yourself anything you like, but her actions do not say that. Look, it's the kind of thing. You can lie, God will smack you, but you can get drunk, you can fall down, you can do drugs, you can run after prostitutes, you can do all that stuff, and still, to me, you're a Christian. You may be in, backslidden or whatever, but you're still my brother, Okay, but see, what I'm talking about is something else. there was a line that was crossed, a satanic initiation line, a show your true colors thing, right? Who are you really? And they all failed. So in our house, we turned off Fox News permanently, and we'll never go back, and realize that it is, I know where CNN's coming from. It's a lefty thing. That's fine. But Fox was always trying to be like this conservative thing, and they're not. No, basically they're Satanists is what they are, and that's their main religion, and that's their main God, and that's Carly Fiorina's God, not Jesus. And Huckabee, you blew it, buddy, because how far can you fall, buddy? How far can you really fall? I thought there was a kindred spirit there, but no, I was mistaken. And I don't get fooled another time. I walk away. Hey, it doesn't matter what I think of you and your affiliation, but when you cross that line, when you got on that vagina flotilla, and when you do the gang rape of, see, it's the gang stalking and the gang rape and the hive mind. You see, those are all things that we don't know anything about, folks. And we shouldn't. They all do. It's, I saw when society moves against someone and how that happens. It's all part of the satanic cabal, the cartel. Far too many people are, yes, your organizations, all your logos, and what do they all mean? It's all part and parcel of the same thing, the corporatocracy, which is like a mirror image of the satanictocracy. It's all part of this fallen world. But if Huckabee thinks he's under grace for crossing that line, that's like saying, F you, Jesus. I don't know you. I'm with this guy over here. I've never known Jesus. I mean, that's how severe this situation is. I don't think I'm exaggerating. If anything, I'm understating it. And maybe in some way, for president, we never have had anyone that's not establishment. I'm thinking Donald Trump must be in the establishment, because how could he get those buildings done and do all the stuff he's done, and how could he be so wealthy? And then I'm thinking, but he's bucking the system too, and obviously there are feuds at that level, and they all feel confident they're going to get rid of him. And even Reince Priebus and company at the establishment Republican GOP, which has no room for yours truly, and I don't think there's much room for you people either. So I kind of have to look at it like an outsider, someone from another planet, like I came from Mars, and I'm here. I came from Alpha Centauri, and I'm here visiting and observing what the humans do. Because I realize that this whole thing that happened, this whole high school immature thing that, but so revealing about the real spiritual battle and what side these people are on. It told me a lot about who they are, all of them. And, like the HuffPo comes out today saying, I can't believe that Donald Trump's misogyny has gone unchecked for so long. Like, they're now trying to go after his business. I think he's for real, because they're now trying to ruin his business, not his campaign. They're going after the whole thing now. So apparently he crossed the line, right? So there's blood coming out of her eyes, and wherever else. And let's say that's not all, but then 15, 20 seconds later he said, and there's blood coming out of Chris Wallace's eyes too, which eliminates the sexist aspect of it. But of course, nobody's looking at the facts. Even if that's all he said, so what? The guy talks like that. That's how they talk in the locker room. I'm sure at Fox News there's that kind of talk all the time. Male and female called on the rag once in a while. There's cussing and everything else. So he hasn't been, so maybe it was a mistake on his part, but it's no reason to ruin his business, is it? The war on women and all this hysteria, this is totally satanic. And people pushing this are Satanists. They love the devil. They love evil. Good is bad, bad is good. They're perverts and they're murderers. And, it's all by proxy, They're prim and proper, just like in the restaurant in the expensive restaurant in Scarface, where Tony Montana, is confronting the hypocrites. Oh, they don't get their hands dirty. No. Someone else does that. We know all too well, do we not, folks? We know. But I will forever remain an outsider because and I know what my friend would say. Well, Carly Fiorina, she'd be pretty good. I mean, what's wrong with her? And my answer is nothing's wrong with her. What I'm talking about with her was just something I went through, seeing the gang stalking against one Donald Trump and watching her be a part of it. And that kind of traumatized me. Not for long, folks. I got my wits back together. I understood what to tell her. I told her I'm done with her. But would she be better than Hillary? Well, sure. Maybe we'd vote for her and then just Jimmy Hillary in anyway, and then there you are. It doesn't matter because by the time Hillary even gets there, if she's going to do it, she may not do it. I mean, by the time whatever the president is gets there, they're going to realize that the whole thing is, they're going to have to take orders and do what they're told, or they won't be on the planet anymore. So there's that too. We're just, in this planet, we're screwed. We came to a place that's completely rigged. All these people sell out to enhance their chances of taking advantage of the rigging, as if there's no hell. And most of them have crosses on and say they're Christians. I've never seen anything like it. You blatantly, in the sight of all creation, proclaim Satan as your God through your action. You cross that line figuring nobody knows what that is. And then you go back to being your good Christian self after the raping, after the gang rape and murder of your target, of your victim. And everyone goes back to their little cubicles like, nothing happened here, right? The cleaner-uppers will clean it up, and life just goes on. Praise Jesus. So yeah, I'm slightly miffed, but not surprised. I mean, I knew it all along. It's just that this Donald Trump, God bless him, he just brought out, just like having a magnifying glass on these people. He's like my litmus test. If they jump on, and try to stab the beast, right? They stab it with their steely knives, Hotel California, but they just can't kill the beast. Oh yeah. I'm not saying Donald is the beast. I'm just saying that ganging up on the carcass, with the knife and you kill and they keep just stabbing, and they're killing the goose that laid the golden egg, aren't they? They're killing Jesus. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. While proclaiming him. And maybe the world of politics and news media and this whole circus that we see every day, maybe that and Christ are incompatible. Has anyone ever thought that? Maybe the idea of parading around with your stupid crosses around your neck on these shows is just like some kind of almost like a talisman in the magical realm to keep evil Jesus spirits away. To signal to people that at the end of this ride, you're still wanting to go with Jesus after all, even after crucifying him. He's still your guy. Yeah. See, sound very sensitive. When I see into something, I see all of it. I don't want to see it. It's like Alice in Wonderland or something. I can't stop from seeing everything. Every in and out, every angle. Every possibility, every meaning, because it hurt me so bad, I never forgot it. It made me very hypersensitive to it. And then I'm not surprised that after my performance on Twitter the last couple of days, I get the Beatles songs reminding me that they're watching, and they're not happy when we're happy. We had to talk with someone who has a similar experience. They watch him from back home, and when anything good happens with him, they get so angry, steam comes out of their ears. And that's how they're acting with Donald Trump. So now what you're going to see, and I'll just make the sad prediction. I hate to show these people as so predictable, but here's what they'll do. They're going to lift up Carly Fiorina and maybe Ted Cruz and maybe, whatever, and act like they're the only ones in the race. And that the Donald is just like an ephemeral thing. There's no debates for a while. Act like he doesn't really exist. You know what I mean? He's not really in the race. It's them. They're the ones that are in the race. They're the ones. And give them all this promotion, and maybe Marco Rubio. Who knows? I know she will be at the very forefront because they want a cat fight with Hillary. Of course, that's going to sell big tickets too. And don't you be fooled by that. But that's another form of it. They're going to do it to marginalize Trump. It's got nothing to do with them. I think any of those people as president would not be strong enough. They're no Reagan or something that had to leak a quasi. Reagan was compromised, but it's pretty good, even compromised. But they're not. None of those people are strong enough to build any consensus or cause any change. Sorry, Trump is. They're not. Yeah, but see, they would rather almost have World War III than Trump. Lindsey Graham said that he'd rather have a Democrat than Trump. So you see where we're at. They will do a scorched earth policy if he gets any more traction. They want him out and gone by the end of August. They want his number, the balloon to be popped. They're going to start also reporting false polls where he's plummeting, where he's not even there. They're going to do this soft kill attempt to say they tried to gang rape him. That didn't work. He won the whole debate. He won everything because he survived. When they try to kill you and you don't die, then you win. But now they're going to try the soft kill. Got me? In other words, ignore him like he's dead. Figuring that if they ignore him and stop talking about him, they'll block his name out from everything, that the polls will just plummet, and they'll be well rid of him. And he might be a third candidate. They'll marginalize him like a Ross Perot, a Ron Paul, someone that can't ever win, right? Off to the side, third party. And then he'll try to run his feeble little campaign over there on the side somewhere while the real candidates go on to win in victory. And right now the darling is Carly Fiorina, who was, again, and I actually had something to do with it. But to me, she's not charismatic enough or, inventive enough. She just seems like, a little more than a bureaucrat. I know she was CEO of Hewlett Packard when it got run into the ground. I understand that. And she was fired because it was run into the ground. Because she didn't have the creativity to pull it out. That's why she was fired. They're doing fine now, I think. But, she's not a revolutionary. She's not a. So anyway, what they're saying about Trump, they said about Reagan, and that's the only parallel I can think of. And although he's real street smart and tough, and he's the one thing I love about him is he seems like a free man, like he's just himself out there, and it drives them all insane. Now, what I did pick up and detect on all the articles are coming out today. So, what I detected on their articles was this: they are insane they are insanely upset, and they just can't help themselves. And this Trump has caused them to completely expose themselves in a way that they never have before. I mean, the John Fund article was absolutely by almost like a raving lunatic, as well as the Red State, all of them. And they don't seem to have a grip on reality, these people. And this thing has driven them insane. I mean, I'm telling you. He's like Saul in the Bible. Trump is driving them completely insane to the point where they're saying, I don't care if it's fair or not, get rid of him. Just get rid of him. And no one seems to know what to do. Don't you delight in that, people?
Guess what Judge has on front and center?
What's that?
Those two women, those two black women.
Oh, yeah. Ned, on top of that, the most bizarre thing is the black people. Yes, the blacks. The African Americans, the former slaves, the people who had a rough time here. A lot of them are backing Trump, and and it's driving the left nuts. So now the left is jumping on with all their magazines because they're now losing people to the Trumpmeister. And they're jumping on. You got blacks in the wake of all the riots and all the other stuff. Black people. So they put their shills out there, Black Lives Matter, trying to shame any black person from going with Trump. But you know what? Trump has a heart for black people. For real. And Latinos. You're getting a lot of Latinos jumping on too. In fact, I bet a lot of these immigrants that have come here hoping for a better life, however they got here with their voting rights, they're going to vote for Trump, I'll bet, if he gets there. I mean, they understand the value of having an economy that works and having jobs. They think that he can bring jobs to Latinos and jobs to blacks. They detect in him a heart that is not prejudiced, not racist at all. At all. Even the Mexicans were what he said with that stupid, that establishment slave, Jorge Ramos of Univision. You don't fool me, Ramos. Not at all. We know you're part of the same establishment as Rupert Murdoch and, Washington, D.C. and everything else. We understand who you really are. You ain't no liberal looking for the good for your people. Oh, no, that's not what makes you tick, buddy. What makes you tick is this thing. This is showing your true colors. He's come out and slammed Donald Trump. He's all upset because he sees the Latinos running over there in droves. And he's got to cut it off at the pass. So he calls him a hate monger because what he said about the border. No, the Mexican people, the Mexican immigrants who are Americans now or trying to be Americans or whatever rights they have, I'm not even sure, but whatever they have, they're looking at Donald Trump, much to the horror of Jorge Ramos and the rest of them, trying to keep them all in the poverty lane, keep them all poor, keep them all on the system, keep them all on the dole. No. See, the Mexican people are just naturally very hardworking. I know so many Mexicans that I know the heart of the Mexican work ethic. It's very strong. It's work and family, and I get it. And God, yeah, definitely very, very heavy God. God's big in Mexico. God's big among Latinos. It's at least in New Mexico. Well, the El Diablo is big too. It's one or the other at extremes. With Latinos. Very passionate people. But anyway, here in New Mexico, I think I know wherever I speak. It's like living in Mexico here, pretty much. So I get it, But hey, I love people, and so whatever. And I've never really had problems with people attacking me for race issues. You know what I mean? I think they can sense in me, like a kind of a kindred spirit, not a separate. But I see them attack other, the white people, but not me. I don't know. It's weird. Same thing with in Hawaii. We have the Hawaiians, and they got this real heavy vibe, like they're not going to talk to the haoles and all that. I never got that. Trish never got that either. It's weird. We never got that, either one of us. Which is good. In France, the same thing. I never got the treatment as the ugly American, like the French will spit in your coffee. They'll do all kinds of nasty things to Americans, especially in Paris. But I never got that. No, I felt welcome there, And whatever. I feel welcome in La France. Vive la France. I know more about French history than most French people. Isn't that amazing? I love the French history, so long as I get to say that the French Revolution, ultimately failed, and using Napoleon as my theorem, and the Napoleonic Wars as my proof, would be, maybe it ultimately didn't fail, but I'm saying, it was like, it was not a bed of roses after 1789, let me tell you. The most killing by guillotine, and boy, I'll tell you, they killed a lot of people with guillotine. When they start lopping heads off, they bring teachers, maids, little people, people that do the work around, and they bring them in the truckload, and that's off with their heads while everybody cheers. And it's terrible. I know many a person, I think ISIS would be longing for something like a guillotine. We've had all the rumors of guillotines, that one day they want to have these guillotines and have them all over the country so they can bring these undesirables down. These people that work in like I say, in schools, and they do the laundry, and they work as maids, and they work as teachers, and they work as they drive trucks, or they do whatever they do, bringing in these regular folk, right, the regular folks, and then lopping their heads off. That's the most horrifying thing. Not bringing in the capitalist pigs, and bringing in the heads of these awful corporations and off with there. No. It's just anyone who's said anything positive about the ancient regime of Louis XVI and Antoinette. Everyone he breathes, that if they work doing the laundry of Louis XVI, of Versailles, okay? Even then, they would be brought down in guillotine. Because the Jacobins, who, by the way, are the New World Order. See, if you knew something about French history, you would understand what you're dealing with. You have no idea. These are the most violent people on the planet. The Jacobins got going with the guillotine. They took over in the early 1700s. And they felt they needed more people to guillotine. They were looking for hundreds of thousands more people to guillotine. That they really needed to purge them all. Anyone who ever, so a neighbor, I could go in there if I wanted to the authorities, and I could say, my neighbor over here said something nice about Antoinette. You don't say. And that afternoon, he or she would off with their heads. That's right. Just anything that got that insane. It got that completely insane. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their heads from this guillotine. Kids were cutting off the heads of animals and putting them on pikes. Then they would march up and down the street with these pikes. The pike is a long spear, okay, long spear, and they put the heads on top of the long spear, and they would march around with them. So the kids would imitate their parents and march around with like dead cats and things like that on spears. They all got a bloodlust going. They're crazy. You see, the devil was thoroughly in charge when they would bring those people up who never meant harm to anyone. And they would have to be in a line and wait patiently for their chance to go lie down on the guillotine, be fastened in, then off with their head, right? And then next, please, then next, please, and then next, very matter-of-factly. It puts ISIS to shame. Pretty much puts Stalin to shame, puts everyone to shame, because all the killings were public. And of course, when Louis XVI lost his head, Antoinette in the early 1700s, they cheered, and it just went on and on and on. Anyway, what happened? They ended up starving. So Napoleon rose, and went to war. That's what people do when they're starving. Good thing they didn't kill. But the Jacobins ran France into the ground. Oh, absolutely. The Jacobins were the ones who wanted, even if you were remotely related to somebody in royalty or something, they wanted them all killed. They just wanted to kill, like most of France. They were eventually stopped, but these are the same people that are the New World Order, that have the depopulation plans. They're Jacobins. They could be zealots. They're mainly on the left, communist, whatever, as a front. but they're really elitists. Yes, but anyway, they're the Jacobins. If you look at them the wrong way, they want you killed. When you see a big body counts around people, they're Jacobins at work. When you say it's the work of the left, you're talking about, at that level, you're talking about the Jacobins. Still alive. And when you're talking about skull and bones and all that, you're talking about the Jacobins. When you're talking about the power behind the scenes that can really move things in society, that gets that dirty work done, you're talking the Jacobins. When you talk about diseducating the children and sexualizing them at 5 years old, which I predicted in a song, I did a song about that and talked about them being sexualized by 5, because they have to own you by 8. So you got to be ready to go at 5, because by 8 they got to have you. Meaning you got to be towing the line by 8. So they start in at 5. No later, any later than that, you're no good. You've been spared. Only in hell would that be going on, by the way. That doesn't go on in heaven. That goes on in hell. Oh, starting to realize you're dead yet? So, with this Donald Trump thing and then these Beatles songs coming in, it's only love, and that is all. Why do I feel the way to? But it's so hard loving you. Yes, it's so hard loving you. And I know what it's like to be dead. I know what it is to be sad, and you're making me feel like I've never been born. Very interesting. Lyrics that had not been in my head for I don't know how many years. I don't know when was the last time I heard these songs. But it seems to be the conflict between the two sides, not just men and women, but how a woman who says she knows what it is to be dead and sad makes the man feel like he was never born. Wow. And he's leaving because she made him feel like he's never been born. He said, no, you don't understand. When I was a boy, everything was all right. Now look at it. So you see, it's got multiple layered meanings, much more so than just the surface story. And the solution to the song is, well, we're just going to have to leave you. It could be the same reaction to seeing, I know this guy is out there having a good time. And I could say to him, you make me feel like I've never been born, because look at all the things you're doing and stuff, and I can't do those things. You're making me feel like I've never been born, right? Is that the context? You make me feel bad. Here you are, free, running around. I'm not as free as that, but I sure know that I've envied people like that at times. And then I guess the ultimate and shackled would be married to the debt machine, married to the system, and you have to do everything the system tells you, or you might not be able to pay your debt, and you're just stuck. And when you see people free, saying what they want, doing what they want, my God, you hate that. Isn't there any way to shut that up? Can't we shut that thing down? Who do we know over there where this guy is? Can we arrest him? Set him up on trumped up charges? I can't have him walking around out there reading poetry. No. He's making me feel like I've never even been born yet. Like I haven't done anything. Oh. And it's too hard to love you because you're out there doing your own thing. We love our own, but we don't love you. You're too hard to love. Oh, I see. It's pretty bad. Well, it's your choice, Donald. It's your choice, Donald. Now, if you want to come down easy, Come on, little boy. Come on, teenager. Come on, adolescent. Come on down out of that tree, Donald. Come on down here, Rupert Murdoch and Bill Clinton and the rest of them. We have a little document for you to sign. And we'll ease you out gently. And now that you're going to play ball, we know you're going to play ball. We're going to go real nice on you in the press. Make sure your business is good. And let's just say this political thing was kind of a mistake. And I'm not saying that won't happen, folks. He may realize how much damage he's done and may try to save his business. And I understand that, all right? I mean, I don't know. He never struck me as being part of the system in the first place, though, right? But he might make peace with the system, even if he's not a part of it, to make sure his business runs. But then again, I don't know. You know, maybe he won't. Maybe he figures he could stay the course and say what he wants to say and run his business. Or not. I mean, but they're out for blood, Mr. Trump. They not only want you down now in the polls, they want you bankrupt because of what you said. The possibility of blood coming out of Meghan's vagina has driven them completely insane to where they want your head on a platter. It's basically they're doing the dance of Salome right now before King Herod. King Herod saying, well, what would you like for your birthday, little girl? It's sweet 16, isn't it? Yes, Daddy, it's sweet 16. I want Donald Trump's head on the platter. Okay, go take care of it. You know, I'd hate to see that. But they've gone all the way into that kind of insanity right now. And perhaps the summer doldrums, the last couple of weeks of August, is always a real month of lassitude, of lackadaisicalness, of just kind of drifting, you know. They've had drifting on to the end of the end of the summer is coming here. Enjoy it while you can, but people tend to at least try to enjoy it for that last 2 weeks of August, don't they? Well, my gosh. This thing with Donald Trump, I mean, how he unmasked all those people, including, well, I'd always wondered about a guy like Huckabee. Now, of course, my wondering has been put to rest. Oh, absolutely. I didn't just see one thing. I saw a million things. I'm not going to accuse him of anything. I'm going to go on. I'm not going to make him a pet project. But I saw enough. Yeah, I saw. In other words, I know the way things work. I know what I saw. I was like, wow. A2, Mikey? Wow. How's that Jesus holding you up there? Wow. I know that there's angels on Donald holding him up because I don't see how any man can take this onslaught of this. I mean, again, it's gone beyond the debates now. Now, let's put in context what he said. Let's add up what they said first. They have gone on a smear campaign to beat the band today, right? The left, they do that very well. So the left is now upset because people are jumping the line. They're Latinos, you got blacks, you know, people that the Democrats cannot afford to lose any of. So now they're jumping in with Fox. They're writing articles that he's a schoolyard bully. That's just a hit piece, John Fund. That's just an angry man, you, writing a hit, trying to really knock him out. And you're insane to make that metaphor, but you're insane. But anyway, that's not going to, right? They're all on it. And there's no Republicans or Democrats in this fight. There's just them and Donald. And, you know, and those who feel a kinship toward Donald, and those who feel some kind of connection toward the establishment, which has run this country into the ground. That's who they are. Because the heads, the senators, the congressmen, the president, they take their orders from on high. They don't take them from the people as they should. Now, Donald Trump has said, well, she was so angry, is the context, that she had blood coming out of her eyes and wherever. And I think he meant out of her ears, nose, whatever, that she was angry, not that she was menstruating, therefore incompetent, or therefore angry because she's on her period. You can make that assumption, but even if that was true, so what? Look what they've done. Character assassination all day long. Article writing, making up stuff. Focusing on those few mistakes in the past, but really amplifying. I mean, absolute out for blood. Because Chris Wallace had blood coming out of his eyes. Yes, he did. That gets him off the hook for the Megyn Kelly thing. There's your proof. No one will look at it. I can't get anyone to acknowledge it, for example. No one. They want him to apologize, damn it, and if society asks you to apologize, it doesn't matter whether you did it or not, you damn well apologize, and you be grateful you're getting another chance to be good. And he's just telling him, I have nothing to apologize for. I said there's blood coming out of her eyes or whatever. Look what you all have done to me. All the articles, all the smearing and the smear campaign is nothing of saying to John McCain, well, I prefer people that didn't get captured. Whatever, maybe he misspoke there. It doesn't matter. It wasn't that serious. It wasn't that, Megyn Kelly thing wasn't serious at all. Calling a red state a bunch of losers because they back losing candidates, fine, that's Trump. That's the way he is. He's always been that way. He's just being himself. And they're on some personal vendetta to get him for what? What's his crime? For being Donald. So I am seeing the parallels to gang stalking, targeting, and on and on. The thing that delights me the most, however, is seeing Latinos and blacks jumping on board with Donald. Realizing that here's somebody, you want change rather than just your Republican Democrat thing. Here you go. This is shake it up, baby. You know what I mean? Bring back the economy, bring back manufacturing jobs. They hear the message and they know his heart. They know one thing he isn't. I mean, he may be a lot of things and he could be mean and testy and whatever, but racism is not one of them. He just, women, here's the funny thing about women, and for the women who are against him, I always shush them because it's like, wait a second, if anyone's going to the White House right now pays women less for the same work a man does. Donald Trump would end that on day one, and has said so. He will make equal pay, or even more pay, the law of the land. That doesn't seem to hold water. The women may not care about that. That's just an issue when they just want him out. They want him to pay, be degraded and hurt for having dared to say that women on the period may be out for blood. Of course, he was doing that in a... Now, I'm still a little bit exhausted here. I'm going to go catch some more Z's, and before my morning, I'm going to take an hour power nap, and then I got to be in the studio, and I've got a bunch of work in there. I've got this one thing I'm pursuing that is a Martian disco, and then there's this guy that thinks he's on Mars. Ow! Something just bit me. Damn it! Get off of me. This guy thinks he's on Mars, and then he gets told later that he's... I don't want to ruin it, but I mean, that he may not be alive. And then you hear my song of being inside the Martian disco, and it's got a Middle Eastern, it's like being in a disco in Morocco. And I don't know what my connection between Morocco and Mars is, but I can't explain it. I'm just kind of doing it, and I've actually asked Kelly to submit something to this little audio story. It's just a very... Well, see, when I was a kid, I used to love when I remember I had the Lawrence of Arabia album, and it had the great score by Maurice Jarre on it, and it was just my favorite movie as a kid. And it had I had a catalog, where the what do they call that? The brochure when you go in the theater. I remember I saw it at the Warner Theater in Beverly Hills, and the Warner Theater back in those days was very formal. Like you'd have a place you'd sit, like a loge seat or a front seat, or you'd have to have a certain seat, and then they sold these programs. They were all color, beautiful photographs of the film shoot and the story. And then there's an album that I used to play. And there's some of this music from Maurice Jarre, like there would be where they're on the desert forever. And this thing would go on and on, which is like a violin, just kind of capturing this idea that they're on this desert and the hot anvil of the sun is just bearing down on them and they're barely alive. So the desert, and they still dressing the way the Bedouin that Jesus dressed, so there they are crossing that desert. And you get the feeling when you listen to the album, you could picture the movie, you picture things. And I used to love records where there was like kind of a thing like that. So and then I don't, it's so strange, the storytelling process, like who knows? I mean, yeah, I've always had a connection with Mars of some sort. Maybe I like the movie Total Recall too much, but then for that to blend into a life and death issue after being in a Martian discotheque, that's just stuff that. Where does that come from, friends? And so I'm wondering where else this goes. I'm just like you might be wondering. Well, I'm wondering now too. Where are we headed with this? And it makes it all very exciting, It's just like, wow. But it's a lot more work than just, say, coming up with a song. But I used to love these albums, where there'd be like little things in the middle, little story points. Well, we had that again with Tommy and the Who, and Quadrophenia. They kind of had a little story running through. But I need more than that, So I want really something more than that. And I want a song to come in kind of like when it really needs to come in, but you're trying to figure out, well, where are we headed with it? Is this, the questions, who is this guy? And is he going to figure out that he's, not alive or, where exactly are they? And I thought we were on Mars at a disco underground. And it seemed like that at first. But it seems like the Martian disco really isn't of this world or Mars itself either. But it was a disco. There were people in there laughing and talking and drinking and smoking and eating and dancing, and then there was the music, which we, focused in on for a while, for about 3 or 4 minutes, just to, have this big track, and so it says mastered track, you get to really hear and then we come back to the story, and we're trying to figure out, well, where exactly are we? And I don't know. I want to find out. And that's what stories are so fascinating when you're the author. And then you realize, my God, the people think I'm the author, like I'm an authority on this. So I'm running by the seat of my pants. I have no idea where it's going. I'm going to find out too. I'm just as interested as you are. Well, my songs, Travel Memories too, especially, really should have been in this thing. I shouldn't have released it early because it's part of this journey. But I think I'm going to take a page out of the Maurice Jarre playbook and go back to the feeling. And I could do this with a synthesizer. I have a couple of monophonic synths. I've got a Moog subtractive sub-fatty, and I have a Dave Smith Pro 2, which is a monophonic or a paraphonic, because it's stereo, but it's still monophonic. And it has some good effects on it. It's not like the, I suppose the big flagship of Dave Smith would be the Prophet 12, which is a polyphonic synthesizer and has big pads and things. These two are just for leads, really, and for bass lines. But they also have special effects. It's nice. I suppose if I had a perfect combo, it'd be the Prophet 12 and the Pro 2. And anyway, I think with those I could create a feeling like Maurice Jarre of crossing a desert, because I think there's got to be some crossing of a desert and going across a river that has to happen here. I'm just not sure. It may be episodic where you get so much and then we find out, but I was going to sit here with the microphone today. See, I'm doing this. See, this is the thing. I gave you this podcast, and the thing is, it's taking away from that. But I couldn't just do that because I had something to. I couldn't know where to go with this beaming of the Beatles songs into my head, so I had to, I had to deal with that. And I don't feel it right now. But definitely, there's been some strangeness the last couple of days. I don't know whether this is electronic beaming or I'm not sure what exactly it is. But the bummed out beam was on the last 4 days, and I'm sick of that. And then it turned off yesterday afternoon, and then I don't know what it is today. It's just kind of like it's a little better than it was. It's not as oppressive feeling as it was the last 3 days, but it's still something's going on. And I'm reminded by someone that every August I go through this stuff. Every August. In fact, that whole thing with the Navy fight song and all that was August too. I'm pretty sure it was August. Okay, so August seems to be just one of those months where stuff is happening. Anyway, I'm glad you indulged me with that. I'm glad you indulged me with the further Donald Trump revelations. It is really a Donald Trump revelation. What purpose does he have? Have you figured that out yet? What is his purpose with all this? I'm not sure it's to be president. I really don't know. He's a trumpet. He's the trumpet that awakens you.
That was Deborah's dream.
Okay, Deborah had a dream that he's the trumpet that awakens you. Okay, well then that jives with my spirit. I don't know about you, but I feel like he's definitely a litmus test that shows who they. So how you wonder about people? Well, when he gets involved, you don't have to wonder anymore. He proves who they are. And when
so many people that I used to respect their opinion, they're just gone.
They're dead to you now. They weren't dead to you 2 days ago, 3 days ago. This thing that happened, Donald single-handedly purged almost everyone at Fox News. I mean, just out the window. That they're all sellouts, right? They have no integrity. And that was the end of that. And TV got shut off, and, well, no one ever went back again. No, we had CNN going the other day for the Donald Trump. It's so strange what's happened. I don't have any particular loyalty to Donald Trump. It's not Donald Trump that did it. It's this cataclysmic collision to where for once I could see the true colors of people. Because you know how people are mixed bag and you don't want to judge. No, but when you can have a moment of clarity there, then you act on it. It's like, if I went back to Fox News, you see, then I would be then shame on me, I mean, then if I have no right to complain again, then if I get misled. Now, see, I saw into the spirit of the thing. That's what disturbed me. That's why I sing Huckabee bow at the devil, I always thought he was, Jesus loving and all that. But I wondered, how do you get that show on TV, right? You always have those questions. He's beholden to somebody, right? They want to make sure that it's not Jesus, because if it is, we're going to have a problem. So it's not you saying I love Jesus, just so we're clear. You know what it really is, folks? It's when you say, I have freedom in Jesus, therefore I think I'm going to go fly a kite. It's that fly a kite thing. And more actions like that, that's where the trouble starts. Saying you love Jesus, well, talk is cheap. Flying the kite when it may not be politically correct to do so, or taking a hike, or doing whatever it is you do, Dasha, you just can't make your mind up, can you? Okay, with that I bid you shalom. I'm sorry, I'm I'm going over and over and over. I'm obsessing. I'm sorry.